I saw a post on Reddit not too long ago. It was a somewhat surreal experience. It was a picture of my game art, and a title that basically said something like nonsensical AI. At first I thought someone was accusing me of generating all my art using AI, but when I checked the profile of the poster, I realized he was actually asking something like 7 different subreddits how to make AI game art copying my style. A bit flattering, but also a bit of a strange thing to stumble upon while casually scrolling Reddit. So I thought we'd try it. Not to necessarily copy my style, but make some kind of simple game art using generative AI. That way we can talk about some of the problems with AI art, what I think it's good for, and why it might be less useful than it seems. I'll be using Dolly. If we start by just prompting Dolly to create a hill, we can see that it can produce kind of decent results. Now if you look at my prompt, you can see already that I make a point to specify most of what I want my style to look like, such as having a doodle style and thick black line art. I also prompted to make the hill yellowish green in order to make sure that my assets can have a unified color scheme further down the line. If I just say green, it might sometimes pick a bluish green and sometimes a yellowish green, and those might clash. We can also see that Dolly is stupid and creates clouds even though I specify it not to. But overall, the results are kind of what I want. This didn't take me more than 5 minutes to create, and it looks kind of nice. And it's also significantly faster than what I can do. So AI already seems kind of promising. But let's continue and make a tiled asset. Once again, we try and prompt it, define the style somewhat, and now it spits out something isometric. I try to force it not to make it isometric by writing side view or profile view, but it keeps spitting out isometric. Now I will note that I am writing game art in my prompt. I do this because I want the background to be white so that I can cut it away significantly faster. This asset was less fun to make, took me about 10 to 15 minutes, and this was the best I could achieve. At least it kind of looks like the same style as my previous asset. The same thing happens when we try to create some grass. It spits out an isometric view, probably because that's what it's been trained on. However, this time I kind of manage. I tell it to make it horizontal. It spits out something kind of dumb, and then I tell it to make it a flat profile view, and it kind of gives me what I want. I also select the bottom of the asset and tell it to remove that part. Naturally, it listens and writes remove below it, exactly what I wanted. And now we're kind of getting into part of the problem with generative AI. It can make things look nice, but it doesn't actually understand anything. So it will sometimes spit out exactly what you want, and other times spit out complete garbage. And so you have to spend a lot of time to prompt the garbage away. So while it is quick to spit out something kind of close to what you want, it is slow to spit out exactly what you want. But overall, so far so good. But when we continue and try to make a tree, this is kind of where the title of this video starts coming into play. You see, I can prompt it to create a nice tree, and it does so. But I personally don't like these popcorn leaves, and I tried to prompt it to remove those. But eventually I give up. Actually, I didn't quite give up, I was put on a timer because I was spamming the server too much. So I take the first picture, throw it onto the iPad, and remove the popcorn. And now the tree looks closer to what I want. Now in this particular instance, you might actually prefer the popcorn leaves. But you can hopefully conceive of a situation where the AI spits out something bad in an otherwise decent image, and where it can't seem to fix it. And hopefully you can imagine a situation where being somewhat decent at drawing can be helpful. When I throw all of this into Godot, we can get kind of uniform results. It kind of looks a bit like an art style. But I think my process for creating this scene kind of showcases something. During this entire process, I have to fight the AI to create what I want. So imagine I'm a terrible artist. I don't have any sense of composition or style. How should I prompt Dolly to create what I want? Well, I'm not sure you can. While it will spit out nice looking assets, you will still have trouble making the scene look good if you don't understand art. I know if an asset has too many details, and I can force those details away. And I can't even fix it myself. And when I finally have my asset, I know how to place them in the scene to make it look decent. I actually do believe generative AI can produce things that are nice to look at, but it doesn't actually understand what is good or why it's good. The person prompting has to understand what's good. And now we come to the title of this video and the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you haven't heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's most properly described by this graph, where if you lack a lot of knowledge in a specific field, you tend to overestimate your competence. Whereas if you actually are competent, you might even go so far as to underestimate your competence. Now there are differing explanations for why this happens. Some claim that it's mostly just a statistical artifact, but one of the most common explanations basically states that the skills necessary to actually do a task are the exact same skills necessary to evaluate how well you accomplished that task. So if you lack the skills to do something, you kind of also lack the skills to evaluate how well you did it. And this is the problem with AI art. Yes, it can produce kind of decent things, but it has to be guided by a person. And if that person lacks the skills necessary to create art, they also kind of lack the skills to evaluate when the AI produces good or bad results. The person also lacks the ability to guide the AI in a proper direction. Now, I will say that I initially expected this process to require more prompting in order to create a coherent style, but it actually produced this type of results quite consistently, which might seem like quite a good thing, but I don't think it necessarily is. Because now you need to learn how to prompt in order to get unique stuff, or people will feel as if you're just generating obvious AI art. When I draw this, people automatically feel and know this was made by a person, who paid attention to each little detail. The problem that occurs with AI art is somewhat similar to what occurs with bought assets. Most consumers would probably prefer bad art that was made with intention. When programmers buy random assets that don't make sense and just paste them into their game, it kind of tells the audience that the creator doesn't care. It looks superficially nice, but not intentional. And just because you suck at drawing, it doesn't mean that AI is a golden ticket. You still need to understand art styles. You still need to understand when an asset is too cluttered. You still need to understand how to place assets to create depth, or how to create focal points. You still need to understand colors and values. When I was trying this out, I actually kind of considered telling Dolly to make everything in gray and colored assets in the engine, like I've done previously, because it would be an easier way to ensure that the colors end up how I want them to. Now, I didn't do this, because I wanted to check how well the AI itself would handle it. And so the things we end up with is that the skills necessary to use AI well are probably somewhat similar skills you need to create game art to begin with. Personally, I kind of believe if you can draw this, you can probably also use AI to create this. But if you can only draw this, you probably can't use AI to create anything decent. Personally, I think I prefer this over this, but realistically, I'm not sure everyone would. Some people would definitely prefer this. And a skilled person can probably use AI to create something that feels intentional and as if it has some direction. But you still need that person behind the wheels to differentiate the good from the bad. Now in this scene, I've only covered the production of static environment assets. Once you get into trying to create character animations or VFX, your problems get significantly worse, and the skills required become significantly more complex. And realistically, if you actually want to maintain the copyright of your game, you probably still need to design your characters, even if you use AI for the rest. After seeing what it produces, I think a beginner artist could probably realistically produce quite decent game art with it, and we're probably moving towards a direction where the craft of drawing becomes less important. And the important skill becomes having taste. Kind of like an interior designer or a director. They don't actually know how to create anything, but they can guide the process and arrange things until it appeals to people. And I kind of expect with time that an artist like myself would be able to upload a couple of images that I have drawn, and an AI like Dolly would be able to copy that style quite well, and just spit out an immense amount of assets for me. So I kind of also expect with time that AI will make the craft of drawing less important. And as such, the need for skilled artists will probably also become less important. With all of this said, I don't know how much I care to moralize the use of AI art. I personally like to draw, and I don't enjoy AI to train on my art or others to copy exactly what I do. But I am extremely biased. But if you disagree, you disagree. I still prefer that you create something somewhat meaningful. So if you plan to use AI, I still think you should practice and try to understand why something looks good or feels meaningful. As I said, think of it as being an interior designer. You don't necessarily need to be a good craftsman in order to understand what makes a table look nice, but you need to understand design. You need to understand something. You still need to be intentional. Oh, and if you feel that my prompting was terrible, it probably was. This was literally the first time I tried it, and I just picked Dolly because it's part of ChatGPT. Thanks for watching. Bye.